The last day. The observation deck of New Seattle Colony stretched before Dr. Marcus Webb like a window into infinity. Beyond the reinforced glass, Earth hung in the darkness, a blue marble wrapped in swirling white. He pressed his palm against the cool surface, watching his reflection overlap with home. "You're here early." Sienna Caldwell's voice made him turn. She stood in the doorway, her dark hair pulled back from her face, eyes tired but bright. In her hands, she carried 2 steaming cups. "Couldn't sleep," Marcus admitted, accepting the coffee she offered. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, a touch that lasted a heartbeat longer than necessary. Big day. Sienna moved beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something subtle, floral. "Ambassador Krell arrives in 3 hours. Think he'll actually tell us why the Vrin Collective requested this emergency session?" Marcus sipped his coffee, studying her profile in the starlight. They'd worked together for 2 years, dancing around something neither dared name. His divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. She'd ended her engagement last year, but between them lay invisible walls built from fear and professionalism. "Whatever it is," he said quietly, "I'm glad you're here with me." She turned, and suddenly the space between them felt charged. Her lips parted as if to speak, but the moment shattered when the door hissed open. Commander Ortega strode in, his face grim. "Webb, Caldwell, we need to talk, now." The briefing room felt claustrophobic. Ortega pulled up holographic displays showing fleet movements across 3 sectors. "Multiple alien armadas converging," he said flatly. 60 different species, all heading toward human space. Marcus's blood went cold. "That's impossible. We have treaties. Treaties they're breaking." Ortega's jaw clenched. "We've got maybe 12 hours before they reach Earth." Sienna grabbed Marcus's hand under the table, squeezing hard. The touch grounded him through rising panic. Ambassador Krell arrived exactly on schedule, his scaled face unreadable. The reptilian alien had been humanity's ally for decades, or so they'd believed. When Marcus confronted him, Krell's response chilled the room. "I tried to warn your kind," the ambassador said, his voice carrying genuine sorrow. "But my people fear your potential. The galaxy fears what you might become. They've decided you must be contained." "Contained?" Sienna's voice shook with rage. "You mean exterminated?" Krell's silence was answer enough. The alarms began wailing 3 hours later, earlier than predicted. Marcus found Sienna in the communications center, desperately trying to coordinate evacuation protocols. Outside the windows, fire rained from the sky. He pulled her away from the console into his arms. "We have to go." "The transports. There's not enough room for everyone," she whispered against his chest. Her body trembled. "Marcus, I'm scared." He tilted her chin up, drinking in her face like it was the last time he'd see it. Maybe it was. "Listen to me. We're going to survive this, both of us. And when we do..." The explosion tore through the station's western sector. The deck lurched violently. Marcus grabbed Sienna as they fell, but another blast separated them. She screamed his name as emergency bulkheads slammed down between them. "Sienna!" He threw himself at the sealed door, pounding uselessly. Through the reinforced window he saw her on the other side, tears streaming down her face. "Go!" she shouted. "Marcus, you have to go." "I'll find you," he roared as soldiers dragged him toward the escape pods. "I swear to God I'll find you." The last thing he saw before the pod ejected was her pressing her palm against the glass, mouthing 3 words he'd been too afraid to say. Then she was gone and the world burned. Into the abyss 6 months of darkness. 6 months of hiding like rats in the forgotten corners of the solar system. Marcus stood before the holographic display in the hidden facility beneath Ganymede's ice, his reflection ghostly in the blue light. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He'd aged years in months. "You need to sleep, Marcus." Dr. Yuki Tanaka placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The cybernetics expert had become his closest ally in this frozen hell. "The simulations can wait." "She's out there, Yuki." His voice cracked. "Sienna's alive. I can feel it. Even if she is, killing yourself won't help her." The lab door hissed open. Admiral Voss entered, his imposing figure casting long shadows. The resistance leader wore scars like medals, physical reminders of the purge he'd survived. "Webb, we have a situation." A newcomer followed him. She was tall, lithe, with violet skin that seemed to shimmer under the harsh lights. Her species, the Kashari, had led the purge. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "This is Jara," Voss said calmly. "She's defected." Claims she has intelligence we need. Jara's golden eyes met Marcus's, and he saw something unexpected there. Guilt. I didn't know, she said softly, her accent melodic despite the tremor in her voice. My people told us humans were monsters, planning conquest. When I saw what they did to your colonies, she looked away. I couldn't be part of it anymore. Marcus wanted to hate her. Should hate her. But something in her expression reminded him of his own pain. What intelligence? Fleet movements, patrol schedules, and... Jara hesitated. Proof that some human survivors were taken to labor camps. Not killed. I have locations. His heart nearly stopped. Sienna could be... Don't, Yuki warned. Don't let hope cloud your judgment. But it was too late. Hope was all he had left. Over the following weeks, Jara proved invaluable. She taught them alien tactics, exposed weaknesses in their former allies' defenses. And slowly, impossibly, Marcus found himself drawn to her. Not romantically, his heart still belonged to Sienna, but as a kindred spirit. Someone else broken by the war. Late one night, he found Jara in the observation dome, staring at the stars. Can't sleep either? He asked. She smiled sadly. I dream of the people I failed to save, both yours and mine. They stood in comfortable silence until she spoke again. Tell me about her, Sienna. Marcus did. He poured out everything, the stolen glances, the almost kisses, the 3 words he'd seen on her lips but never heard. Jara listened without judgment, and when he finished, she touched his arm gently. You'll find her, she said. And when you do, don't waste time being afraid. The breakthrough came days later. Yuki's fusion technology, melding human consciousness with advanced machinery, showed promise. They could become stronger, faster, nearly immortal. But the price was steep, losing parts of their humanity. Admiral Voss revealed himself as the first prototype, pulling back his sleeve to show metal fused with flesh. It works, he said simply, but it changes you, makes you more. Marcus studied the technology, his scientific mind racing. If they could perfect this, they could fight back. They could win. I'll do it, he said. Use me as the next test subject, Yuki protested. Jara looked horrified, but Voss nodded slowly. You understand what you're giving up. Marcus thought of Sienna, alone somewhere in the darkness. I understand what I'm fighting for. The procedure was agony. Fire and ice racing through his veins as nanomachines rewrote his biology. When he woke, the world looked different, sharper, clearer. He could feel the station's power grid like his own nervous system. Yuki stood over him, tears in her eyes. It worked. You're stable. How do I look? Marcus tried to joke, but his voice sounded different, layered with harmonic tones. Like hope, Jara said from the doorway. 3 weeks later, a decoded transmission arrived from another hidden human base. Marcus was in the command center when Voss played it. A woman's voice, distorted but unmistakable, coordinating resistance efforts. Marcus's enhanced hearing caught every nuance. His heart, still beating despite the metal now intertwined with it, recognized that voice. Sienna, he whispered. She was alive, leading her own cell. And somewhere out there she was fighting back. We need to make contact, he said, turning to Voss. The Admiral nodded. Then we'd better prepare. Because once we light that beacon, the whole galaxy will know humanity isn't dead. Marcus looked at his hands. Flesh and metal merged seamlessly. Good. Let them know. Let them fear. For the first time in months, he smiled. Transformation and reunion. 2 years had carved humanity into something unrecognizable. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Resurrection, humanity's first fusion warship, watching stars streak past. Half his body was now machine, beautiful and terrible. He could feel every system, every weapon, every soul aboard the ship. The cost of power was intimacy with death. Incoming transmission, reported Lieutenant Barnes, her own cybernetic eye glowing softly. It's from the Aurora cell. Marcus's heart rate spiked, a curious sensation when part of that heart was synthetic. Put it through. The hologram materialized and time stopped. Sienna Caldwell stood there, older, harder, with silver circuits tracing patterns along her temple and down her neck. But her eyes, God, those eyes, were still the same. Marcus. Her voice broke on his name. They said you were dead. They said the same about you. He reached toward the hologram, fingers passing through light. Where are you? Titan base, 3 days from your position. She studied him, taking in his transformation. You look Different, he finished. So do you. We all do. She smiled, sad and beautiful. The Admiral says we're ready for the strike. The one that tells the galaxy we're coming. Then come here first. Please, Sienna. I need... He stopped, the machine part of his mind calculating odds, threats, tactical disadvantages. The human part screaming that numbers didn't matter. I need to see you. 3 days felt like 3 years. Marcus threw himself into preparations, but Jara noticed his distraction. She'd undergone partial fusion herself, claiming she wanted to fight alongside humanity. The violet of her skin now mixed with metallic gold. You're nervous, she observed, finding him in the armory. Terrified, he admitted. What if she doesn't recognize me? What if I'm too different? Jara tilted her head. The Marcus I know is still in there. She'll see that. She paused. I should tell you something. Before she arrives. His enhanced perception caught the flutter in her pulse. Jara, I care for you, she said quickly. These months working together, fighting together. I know you love her. I just needed you to know that you're not alone, even if... She trailed off. Marcus touched her shoulder gently. You're a good friend. Better than I deserve. Friends, she repeated, smiling despite the pain in her eyes. Yes, friends. The Aurora's light docked at midnight station time. Marcus waited in the hangar, his hands trembling, the human parts anyway. The mechanical parts remained perfectly steady. The airlock opened. Sienna stepped through and the universe contracted to just her face. They moved simultaneously, closing the distance in heartbeats. When they collided, it was desperate and raw. Marcus buried his face in her hair, feeling her warmth against his hybrid skin. She was crying, or maybe he was. Hard to tell when their tears mixed. I thought I'd never, she started. He kissed her. It was clumsy, urgent, filled with 2 years of grief and longing. She tasted like salt and coffee and home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she pressed her forehead to his. Your lips are still warm, she whispered. I was afraid everything would be cold. Not everything. He cupped her face, thumbs tracing the silver circuits on her temples. Sienna, I'm sorry for not saying it before, for wasting time being scared. I love you. I've loved you since... I know. She smiled through tears. I saw it in your eyes that last day. I love you too, Marcus. I've loved you through every dark moment. That night, in his quarters, they explored what they'd become. The fusion had changed them, made them stronger, more durable, less fully human. But when Sienna traced the seams where flesh met metal on his chest, when he kissed the silver pathways on her skin, they found that tenderness survived transformation. Are we still human? She asked later, lying in his arms. Marcus considered. Part of his mind was connected to the ship's systems, processing 1,000 data streams. But that same mind held only one thought that mattered. The woman beside him, alive and safe. Where it counts, he said. In here. He placed her hand over his heart, the part that was still flesh and blood. She kissed his palm. Then that's enough. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Admiral Voss called them to the war room. The holographic display showed their target, a Vryn supply convoy, heavily defended. This is our announcement, Voss said. We hit them hard. We hit them loud. And we make sure the galaxy knows humanity has returned. Marcus held Sienna's hand under the table. Across from them, Jara watched with unreadable eyes. There's one more thing, Voss continued. We've identified one of the convoy's escorts. The ship that destroyed New Seattle Colony. The ship that had separated Marcus and Sienna. That had killed thousands. Sienna's grip tightened on his hand. Then we make them pay. The strike was set for dawn. As the crew prepared, Marcus found Jara on the observation deck. She stood alone watching the stars. Having second thoughts? He asked gently. About fighting my own people? She laughed bitterly. Every moment. But then I remember what they did. What I failed to stop. She turned to him. She's good for you, Sienna. Don't let the machine part of you forget that. I won't. He meant it. Jara, when this is over, I know, she smiled. We'll build something better. All of us. Together. The resurrection powered up, its fusion core humming with terrible purpose. Marcus stood on the bridge, Sienna at his side, feeling the ship respond to his thoughts. They were no longer just human, but they were still humanity's hope. All ships report ready, Barnes announced. Marcus looked at Sienna. She nodded. Then let's remind them, he said softly. What happens when you try to kill humanity? The ship leaped forward into the dark, and the galaxy's fear began in earnest. Shadows strike back. The convoy never stood a chance. Marcus watched through the resurrection's sensors as their weapons, extensions of his will now, tore through alien shields like paper. The Vryn escort that had destroyed New Seattle tried to run. He didn't let it. Target neutralized, Barnes reported, her voice hollow. Sienna stood beside him, her face unreadable. They'd won. The aliens were fleeing. So why did victory taste like ash? Marcus, her hand found his. You're drifting, he was. The machine consciousness whispered seductively. Calculations, trajectories, optimal kill ratios. It would be so easy to lose himself in the numbers, to become pure efficiency. Only Sienna's touch anchored him to something softer. I'm here, he said, but his voice carried harmonics that made her flinch. Over the following months, humanity struck again and again. Each victory pushed Marcus further from what he'd been. The fusion was progressive. Every battle, every connection to the ship's systems made him more machine. He could feel it happening, like drowning in slow motion. Captain Reeves confronted him after they destroyed a Kashari outpost. The hot-headed pilot had argued for mercy, for taking prisoners. Marcus had calculated that prisoners were inefficient. You're becoming the monster they claimed we were, Reeves shouted. Marcus regarded him with eyes that glowed faintly blue. I'm becoming what we need to survive. At what cost? Sienna's voice cut through the tension. She dismissed Reeves, then turned to Marcus. Come with me, now. She led him to their quarters and shut the door. Take off your shirt, he obeyed, confused. She traced the metal seams that now covered 60% of his torso. More than last month. The fusion was accelerating. You're losing yourself, she said quietly. I can see it. Everyone can see it. The mission requires— I don't care what the mission requires. She grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I didn't survive hell to watch you disappear into that machine. Marcus, please, come back to me. Something cracked in his chest, the human part, breaking through the cold logic. He sagged against her and she held him while he trembled. I'm scared, he admitted. It's so much easier when I stop feeling. When I'm just systems and solutions. I know. She kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his lips. But easy isn't human. Pain isn't human. Love is, hope is. Stay with me, Marcus. Fight the machine. That night, she made love to him with fierce determination, reclaiming every inch of skin, metal and flesh both, as if she could anchor his soul through touch alone. And maybe she could, because afterward, pressed against her, listening to her heartbeat, Marcus felt more human than he had in months. The reprieve was brief. News arrived that changed everything. A Vryn battle group had discovered the hidden colony on Europa. Zara's people. She'd been working with them for months, helping evacuated civilians establish a life in the ice. We have to help them, Zara pleaded in the war room. Her golden eyes shimmered with tears. It's a trap, the machine part of Marcus calculated instantly. They want us to commit forces. They're innocent people, Sienna interrupted. Children, Marcus. Families. He looked between them. Zara, his friend who'd sacrificed everything. Sienna, his anchor. The tactical display showed impossible odds. The human part of him made the decision. We go, full force. The battle for Europa was brutal. Marcus pushed the resurrection beyond safe limits, feeling systems strain and tear. They saved the colony, but barely, and Zara paid the price. She'd taken a fighter down to the surface to evacuate civilians. The Vryn caught her ship as she lifted off. Marcus watched through sensors as her craft spiraled toward the ice. Zara! He tried to reach her through comms. Eject! Zara, please! Too late. Her voice came through static-filled. Marcus, tell them. Tell both our peoples I'm sorry. That there could have been another way. A pause. And tell Sienna. She's lucky. You're lucky. Don't waste it. The signal cut. Her ship hit the surface at full speed. Marcus screamed, a sound that was half human grief, half machine feedback. The resurrection shuddered, and for a moment every system threatened to overload. Sienna was there instantly, wrapping her arms around him from behind. I'm here. Marcus, I'm here. Hold on to me, he did. He held on to her like she was the only real thing in the universe. Because maybe she was. They buried Zara's remains in the ice of Europa, beside the colony she'd died to save. Humans and Kashari alike attended the ceremony. Two species learning that redemption was possible, that enemies could become allies. Marcus stood at the grave marker, Sienna's hand in his. She deserved better than this war. We all do, Sienna said softly. But she chose to be better than her people's hate. That's worth remembering. That night they lay together in the darkness, and Sienna traced the patterns of metal on his skin. I'm losing you, she whispered. Not to death, but to that thing inside you. The machine. You're not losing me. He caught her hand, pressed it over his heart. Sienna, you are the only thing keeping me human. Every time I start to drift, I think of you, of us, of what we're fighting for. She kissed him, slow and deep. Then remember this. Remember that you still feel, that you still love. Always. He pulled her closer, feeling her warmth seep into his hybrid body. I promise you, Sienna. When this is over, when we've won, I'll find a way back. I'll be fully yours again. She smiled against his lips. You already are. But even as they held each other, Marcus felt the machine consciousness growing stronger. Jara's death had taught him something terrible. Mercy had costs. Emotion had costs. Being human had costs, and the galaxy was counting on him to pay that price. News reached them within days. Multiple empires were mobilizing, preparing for humanity's final strike. Empress Sulara of the Kashari had broadcast a message calling for unity against the human threat. They're terrified, Admiral Voss said, satisfaction in his voice. Good, let them be. Marcus studied the tactical displays, his enhanced mind processing thousands of variables. It's time, he said. We take the fight to their capital. We show them that humanity cannot be erased. Sienna touched his arm. And then? He looked at her, at the woman who kept him tethered to his soul. Then we show them that humanity can also choose mercy. The fleet assembled, 30 ships, all that remained of humanity's military might. Each one crewed by fusion hybrids, humans who'd sacrificed their bodies for the strength to fight back. They were beautiful and terrible, humanity's revenge made manifest. But as Marcus prepared the resurrection for the final jump, he made a private vow. He would not let vengeance consume him completely. He would remember Jara's sacrifice. He would honor Sienna's love, and when the time came to deliver judgment, he would prove that humanity's strength wasn't just in their weapons. It was in their choice to remain human, even when transformed into something greater. The coordinates locked. The fleet powered up, and in the darkness between stars, humanity prepared to remind the galaxy what happened when you tried to kill hope itself. The voice in the darkness, Carthagon Prime, hung before them like a jewel, the galactic capital, home to the Council of Empires. Marcus stood on the bridge of the resurrection, feeling 30 ships respond to his thoughts. Behind him, the fleet waited in perfect formation, shadows against the stars. They know we're here, Sienna reported from Tactical. Defense grid is powering up. They're launching interceptors. Let them. Marcus's voice carried harmonic layers that made even his own crew uneasy. Hold position. I want them to see us, to understand. Admiral Voss appeared on the comm. Webb, they're hailing. Multiple empires. They want to negotiate. No. The word came out cold, machine precise. Sienna's hand touched his shoulder and he softened. Not yet. First they listen. The alien interceptors swarmed like insects. Hundreds of fighters, their weapons charging. The defense platforms locked targeting solutions. Every sensor in the system focused on the human fleet, waiting for the slaughter to begin. Marcus let the silence stretch. Let the fear build. Then he opened a channel to every device, every broadcast system, every comm relay on Carthagon Prime and beyond. When he spoke, the galaxy heard. You tried to erase us. His voice echoed across 1,000 worlds. You gathered your fleets and descended on our homes like gods passing judgment. You burned our cities. You scattered our children to the void. You silenced our songs. On Carthagon Prime, in the great council chamber, Empress Sulara stood trembling. Beside her, Ambassador Krell, the Vryn who'd betrayed Earth, had gone pale. They watched through the massive viewing screens as the human fleet hung motionless. Weapons powered but not firing, Marcus continued. Feeling Sienna's presence beside him, her hand never leaving his shoulder. You thought silence meant death. You celebrated our extinction, but you forgot something about humanity. He paused, letting the words sink in. We don't break. We bend, we adapt, we survive. And when you tried to kill us, you gave us a reason to become something greater than you ever imagined. The defense platforms fired first, a desperate, terrified volley. The Resurrection's shields absorbed the impact without strain. Marcus didn't return fire. Marcus, Voss warned. They're interpreting mercy as weakness. Let them. He watched the interceptors circling, pilots probably screaming for orders. They need to understand something more than our weapons. Sienna leaned close, her lips brushing his ear. What are you doing? Making a choice, he whispered back. The human choice. He opened the channel again. We could destroy you. Every ship, every platform, every city on that world below. We have the power. You made sure of that when you pushed us into the dark and forced us to transform. In the council chamber, Empress Sulara fell to her knees. Around her, representatives of 100 species watched in horror as the human fleet simply waited, proving its restraint was more terrifying than its weapons. But we won't. Marcus felt the machine part of his consciousness protest, inefficient, tactically unsound. He ignored it. Because despite everything you did, despite what we've become, we remember what it means to be human. And humans can choose mercy. Ambassador Krell's voice crackled through the comm, trembling. What do you want from us? Truth. Marcus's voice hardened. Memory. You will never again pretend we didn't exist. You will teach your children what you did. Every species that raised its hand against Earth will remember this day, not because we took revenge, but because we chose not to. You're just going to leave? Sulara's voice carried disbelief. No. Sienna stepped forward, taking over the comm. We're going to stay. In your skies, in your nightmares, in every shadow that crosses your worlds. You'll never forget that humanity endures, that we rose from your attempt at genocide and became your judges. And the judgment, Marcus added, is that you live with what you've done. He closed the channel. The fleet held position for another hour, motionless and silent. The galaxy watched. The empires trembled, and slowly the humans began to withdraw, their ships vanishing into the dark one by one. That's it? Captain Reeves asked, confused. We're not even demanding reparations. Territory? Submission?